it's me, Kelsey, and I'm so glad you're here at my channel. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're coming back, hey, again, it's me. And we are gonna do our monthly wrap up for the month of April. I read 10 books in the month of April, which is pretty normal for me. And I'm gonna share with them. Basically what I do in these videos is I share how I read them, what I read, how I read them, and what I rate them. And someone asked me to explain my rating system. So the best way to explain it is like, think about Disneyland and the rides at Disneyland. 4-star is like, I rode the ride and I really loved the ride and I liked it and it's great and I might ride it again if there's time. Anything above a 4-star means I'm gonna ride it again. A 4.5 star means I'm gonna fast pass it and try to ride it again is like the best. A 5-star is like, I am riding it again. I'm like booking it into the park. I have to ride it again. I am absolutely going to ride it as many times as I can while I'm in the park. Anything below a 4-star is gonna be like, probably not riding it again. A 4.2 star, 4.25 star, a 4.5 star means I'm probably gonna ride it again if the line is like good enough. Like I said, a 4.5 star means I'm fast passing it. A 4.25 star means I'm probably gonna ride it again if the line is short enough. 4.75 means I'm gonna try to ride it again. But like a 5-star, someone was like, what is a 5-star? Think of it as like, I am booking it into the park to ride that ride again. Below a 4-star means I'm probably not going to ride it again while I'm on my trip. A 4-star means I'm probably going to try to ride it again. I really liked it. It's pretty average. It's pretty great. Most of the books that I'm reading, like I want to read. Like I picked them because I'm interested in reading them. I'm rarely going to rate a book if it's below a 4-star, it's because it's like, I picked it and I'm not like, it's most books I read are a 4-star or above. Most, not all. Like this month, there are a couple, looking at my list, there are a couple that are below a 4-star. But like, that's my rating system. Like rarely do I give out 5 stars. Rarely. I think I've given out 5 stars on a whole series this year. If you've watched my channel, you know the whole Magnolia Park series got 5 stars from me this year. But like rarely do I give out 5 stars because they have to be books that I am like obsessed with. I've given out 4.75 stars this year. I've given out 4.5 stars this year. I've given out a lot of 4.25 stars this year. But I rarely give out 5 stars. And again, I don't give out a lot of below 4 stars because I'm reading books that I'm genuinely like enjoying and excited about. I'm not reading books that I like don't want to be reading. Like if I don't want to be reading it, I'm not picking it up. So that being said, let's talk about the 10 books that I read in April. Let's start with what I read on my Kindle. I have Kindle Unlimited, and so if you don't have Kindle Unlimited, why the heck not? It's $9.99 and you get access to tons of books. So I read 3 books on my Kindle this month. The first one that I read was The Triple Duty Bodyguard by Lily Gold. I'm also going to tell you that some of these were on my TBR. So if it says TBR, check, that means that it was on my TBR for last month. And this was one that was on my TBR for last month. And I ate this book up. It was so good. It follows Blair, who is a movie star who just kind of like has some issues. She has a stalker. And she ends up meeting the angels. And the angels are Glenn, Kenta, and Matt. And they come into her life and she ends up falling in love with all of them. And from there, what happens when you fall in love with 3 men is basically the premise of this book. And I ate it up. I love Lily Gold. She writes only reverse harem books. I cannot get enough of her books. I've read a book of hers almost every single month this year, and I probably will continue to read more of her books. I think I have like 2 more, and then I've read her entire backlist. So yay. But her books are fun. They're fluffy. they're spicy, they're all kinds of excitingness. And this book just it delivered. It delivered what I needed at the beginning of the month. It delivered spicy, it delivered fun, it delivered it's got some heavier topics in it that I wasn't quite expecting, but it did it in a way that was it did it in a way that was not overbearing. It did it in a way that was not hard. It did it in a way that was lighthearted, but still got to the heart of the topic. And I appreciated that a lot about this book. So I gave this book a 4.25 stars. It was a good read. The next one that I read, I have my list down here so that I don't miss anything that I read on my Kindle. The next one that I read on my Kindle was Cards of Love, Wheel of Fortune. This is more of a novella. It was really short. It was only 110 pages. And this is by Ella Fox. And it follows Chloe and Jackson. And Chloe and Jackson are, they grew up together and they kind of have this rivalry. And they end up seeing a fortune teller. And the fortune teller tells them some things about their lives and how they're connected. And they end up falling in love. And it was really short. And for a short novella, it had a lot in it that I liked. Again, it was really short, and sometimes with novellas and sometimes with short stories, you don't get a lot of detail and you're like, what the heck? That was super fast and that was super ridiculous. This had a lot in it for a short novella. I liked the character development for a short novella, and I liked that Chloe and Jackson had a lot of build in this story. So that was good. Again, novellas are hard to rate because they're so short and there's so much that has to happen in such a short time. But I did give this a 3.5 stars. It was cute. It was fluffy. The ending kind of came fast. But it was, if you're looking for a fast read, if you're looking for something quick, this is a good one for you. And then the last one that I read on my Kindle was Consider Me by Becca Mack. It is a hockey romance, and it's something that had been on my radar for a while. It follows Carter and Olivia and their found family. They are up in the Vancouver, Washington, and he plays professional hockey for one of the teams up there, and she is a PE teacher, and they meet through friends. And at first he is a playboy and she is not interested in him whatsoever. And he meets her and he cannot stop thinking about her, looking at her, talking about her, thinking that he is one, and she does not want anything to do with him. And he pursues her and changes for her and all those things, and it is super good and super cute and super fluffy. Not fluffy, what's the word I'm looking for? Fun. It's super fun, and I enjoyed it. It is way too long for what it is. It is way too long for what it is. If it was 150 pages shorter, I would have enjoyed it way, way more. It is way too long. I loved the found family in this book, though. I loved Olivia's best friend. I loved the hockey players. I loved Olivia's brother. I loved the found family in this book. They were phenomenal. They were funny. They were upbeat. They were one of the best parts of this book. I did really like Carter and Olivia as characters. I really did love their character arcs, their development. I love the overall story. It was just so freaking long. The middle dragged to the point where I almost put this book down because it was there's no story in the middle. It felt like the story was just repetitive. It felt like the characters were just going through the drain of the same thing. It was I'm over this topic. Can we just move on, please? At one point, I was we've wrapped this whole story up. Why is there still 200 pages to go? It was way too long for what it was. So that being said, I only gave it a 3.75 because it was too long. I think if this book had been 100 or 150 pages less, it definitely would have gotten a 4-star for me. But because of the length, I'm only giving it a 3.75. So those are the 3 books that I read on Kindle this month. I read a ton on paperback this month, which is really rare for me. Usually I listen or I'm on my Kindle a lot more. But for some reason this month, I was really into paperbacks. So the next book I read on paperback was my highest rated book this month, and it is The Nanny by Lana Ferguson. I straight up ate this book up. I read this book in a day and a half, which I'm dyslexic, so reading a book that fast never happens for me. But I could not put this book down. And this book follows Cassie and Aiden. And Aiden is a chef, and Cassie becomes his nanny. But here's the kicker. Cassie was an OnlyFans girl, and Aiden was her biggest subscriber. And I have never, ever, what the what? What the what? This book was spicy. This book was fun. This book was all the things I wanted it to be. And I could not put this book down. I could not put this book down. And the other thing about this book that was really fun is usually kids in books I don't like. I don't like when authors write with kids in books because they write them not age appropriate. And I'm like, this is not age appropriate. You're writing this kid and you're saying that this kid is in second grade, but they're talking like they're in junior high. Or you're writing this book and you're saying that this kid is in second grade, but they're talking like they're in preschool. This is not, what the heck? The kid in this book was super age appropriate, super spot on, super great. And I connected with the kid in this book. She was amazing, the daughter in this book. So good. So good. This was my highest rated book this month at a 4.5. I ate this book up. I loved it so much. The next one I read is going to be a super controversial opinion. I'm a little nervous about sharing this one because the internet is going to hate me for this opinion. I read A Court of Thorns and Roses. And I did not like it. Let me rephrase that. I loved Farrah. Farrah is badass, kick-ass, super, superstar woman. There's way too much world building for me in this book. I got bored. The world building, I had to put it down a couple of times. I had to put it down 3 or 4 times. I almost DNF'd it. I know. Sorry, interwebs. Come at me in the comments. It's fine. It's fine. The world building was way too much for me. It was I could not get through it. But I love Farrah. She's pretty kick-ass. She's pretty BA. So I don't know. And again, I know from watching all the stuff on the interwebs that we are not supposed to like Tamlin, but I kind of like Tamlin in this book. So I know that he's going to become persona non grata in the other books, but I like Tamlin in this book. So there's that. Because of that, I'm giving this book a 3.75 stars. All right, I'm going to move on now. The next one that I read was the rest of the Dark Olympus series. I read Radiant Sin, Cruel Seduction, and Midnight Ruin, which is the rest of what is currently out for the Dark Olympus series. Radiant Sin follows Cassandra and Apollo, and they go to a house party. And at the house party, there's some mysterious stuff that goes down. And while they're at the house party, they realize that they are madly in love with each other. And it is spicy. This whole series is spicy. And you cannot read, just so you know, you cannot pick up one book in this series and then just read them. You have to read this series from Neon Gods all the way through Midnight Ruin. You have to read them in order because the series is following some very detailed things. This is a series you must read in order. So I highly recommend this series. I've really enjoyed this series so far, but you have to read it in order. This was, like I said, Cassandra and Apollo's book, and I gave this book a 4-star. The next one was Cruel Seduction. This follows the threesome of Aphrodite, Hephaestus, and Adonis. And I liked this one a lot. I think this one was this is the one I gave the highest rating out of the 3 here. And I gave this one a 4.5. This one just really was I just loved this one. I loved the character development in this one of Hephaestus. I loved the character development of Aphrodite's, and I loved how Adonis was like the centering of this. Actually, this also has Pandora in this one as well. Pandora. So this is actually a foursome. I forgot about Pandora. And just the whole dynamic of this book was so good. The dynamic of the characters, the dynamic of the world, like the mystery that's been going on from neon gods all the way through, like kind of we got some insight into that. We got some insight into what's coming. We got some insight into the story. Like I really was like invested into this book, and this series is getting like so good. I'm so excited to see what continues to happen. Then I read Midnight Ruin. This one follows Eurydice, goodness gracious. Eurydice, Charon, and Orpheus. I had to think of how to say his name. And I really did like this book. This one really was not so much, in my opinion, about the romance. Yes, the romance was there. Yes, the spice was there. Yes, that all was there. But it was really about giving us crumbs of what the story is going to be. Like, what is happening? Like, what the heck is happening with Olympus? What the heck is happening with all of the things that are going on in the world, with the wall, with the curse? I'm calling it a curse. I don't know if it's really a curse. There's things happening. There's like mysterious things happening. This gave us a lot of crumbs of that, and I ate that up. I gave this a 4.25 stars. Because again, the romance was not the front and center, in my opinion, point of this book. That this book was more giving us information about what was coming and what was happening. The next book in that series is coming out this summer, and I am ready. There's going to be 12 books in this series, and we're only on book 7. So I'm like, because we've gotten so many crumbs of all of the things that are going to happen and how Olympus is going to fall and all of these things. So I can't wait to see where Katie Roberts takes this series and where that goes. So then after I read that series, I read, Once Upon a Broken Heart, which I have seen all over Book Talk, and I really enjoyed this one. I went back to fantasy after I did A Court of Thorns and Roses, and this one, it follows Jax and Evangeline, and it follows them as Evangeline, who is sweet and innocent and pure and just wants to find love and romance, and she makes a deal with the Prince of Hearts, who is Jax. And her adventures to find love and romance, basically, and what happens when you make a deal with the Prince of Hearts. And I have the next one on my TBR for this month, and I cannot wait to see what happens, because their story is not over yet by far. And I really did enjoy this. I'm not usually a fantasy reader. I don't really like fantasy. I'm not huge into the fantasy genre, and this is fantasy far and beyond. And I thought that this was really good. I thought this was really well done. Unlike Agatar, the world building was not too much for me. The world building did it in a way where I was not bored, where I was not overwhelmed by it, where I was not like, oh, a snooze fest. It did it in a way where I could like pace myself and understand it and kept up. And it was not like world building on top of world building on top of world building. It was well done, and I enjoyed it, and I gave this a 4.25 stars. And then the last book that I read this month was The Spanish Love Deception. I really loved this book. I know, again, a lot of people don't love this book, but it reminded me a lot of one of my favorite books, which is The Hating Game. This book and The Hating Game are very similar, and I ate this book up Like I did so much. This follows Aaron and Catalina, and Catalina needs a date to her sister's wedding, and Aaron, who she works with, says that he'll go with her. But Aaron and her are mortal enemies at work, and so they have to figure out how that's going to work out. And they create the Spanish love deception because the wedding's in Spain. And oh my gosh, this book was so cute. I listened to this book on audio. I think this was the only book I listened to on audiobook this month. And I just loved it. The audiobook was so fun. It got the little Spanish, when she speaks Spanish, I love that it had the Spanish in there because I don't speak Spanish, so I would have never gotten the little like hints of her speaking Spanish would have never in my brain worked well. So hearing it on the audiobook was super fun and super exciting. I loved just the way he loved her throughout the whole book. Again, it reminded me a lot of The Hating Game, and I love The Hating Game. That's one of my favorite books. So that was exciting. So those are the 10 books that I read this month. As you know, I put a little check TBR if it was on my TBR list from last month. I did okay on my TBR last month. I think I had 4 books from my TBR, I think, that were on here. So that was fun. So until next time, friends, bye-bye.